We're on the chapter 4, the last chapter in the book of Ruth. Last time we met, Ruth and Boaz had met together at night in the where Boaz was winnowing the barley, and the had a discussion, and it came about that Ruth and I should say Boaz told her that he was interested in marrying her. However, there was somebody a little closer in the family who could do the redeeming first. So he said he will go ahead and come to the court, and they'll make a decision. Okay, so the fourth chapter starts. It says, "Uboaz olo hashar," and Boaz went ahead and went to the gate. Now, many times we've seen the Torah talked about the gate. What is it referring to? The court, because in those days when you entered the city, the first building, a major building that you would have, is the court system, courthouse.
What is the verb?
Hashar. Shar means
the
gate.
The gate meaning
the
the gate.
Because it was like when the person entered through the first gate. Usually, the main building that would come up is the court. So it was easy to find. But anyway, Boaz has to go there because we have to decide this issue, whether he has the right to marry Ruth or the closer relative who told maybe he would want to do it. He was a closer relative than Boaz was. So Boaz is now coming to the court, which means what they tell you, the gate. But he sat there, and Boaz, and a closer redeemer happened to also go there. Some say it was Rosh Kocha. They didn't invite him yet. In fact, he happened to be passing by, and he was happening passing by, and they told him to come in, but he was involved. Again, you see everything's under hashgacha through divine supervision that should happen so quickly. Boaz, the redeemer, the closer relative, came about. It was passing by that Boaz spoke about to Ruth, right? And when he saw him, when Boaz saw this person, oh, come on over here, so and so. No, it's interesting. He calls him Poloni Almoni. The book of Book calls him that. We know his name is Tov. So why does he call Poloni Almoni so and so? Or he was called that because eventually he didn't follow through. He had a chance of doing a great mitzvah of redeeming Ruth, and but he lost. Eventually, he refused to do so. He didn't want anything to do with it. Okay, but anyway, this fella came. Later on, the mentioned his name is Tov. I think in last week's parrot. Last time we saw his name was Tov.
Maybe if he called him Tov and not Poloni Almoni, he would have done
it. Now, Tov they called when he was talking to Ruth, he said, Tov, if Tov wants to redeem you, fine. And if not, I will do so. But we know the outcome was that he refused because he felt, since he knew that Ruth came from a Moabite family, he said that will have a bad effect on his family. They might not accept it. So he didn't want to do it. But over here, that's why they don't give his name as Tov. They call him Ploni Almoni, so-and-so.
So okay. He called him, Boaz called him Ploni Almoni, or
the Ruth, the book of Ruth. Over here it says, but you have it last time we met, Boaz told Ruth, if Tov will do it, fine, because he's the closest one to redeem. But if not, I will do it. Okay, but
I read an interpretation that they called him Ploni Almoni so they wouldn't know his name, so he wouldn't be ashamed, humiliated.
Well, that's another thing, but we do, well, according to some of our commentators, and that word Tov, that was his name, according to some, okay? All right, so he turned and sat down, came out, okay? At this point, I don't think you know exactly what they wanted. Vayikach asor anoshim. And Boaz takes 10 men, 10 constitute a minyan, a quorum. Now, why did he take 10 men? Because it goes back to what I said about that special ruling of that only female Moabite converts can be accepted to marry a Jewish man. This is what it says. The Rabbi Omar, wrote in order to expound of Rasum and Milsa and to publicize the Ammoni v'lo Ammonis, Moabi v'lo Moabit. It should be known by all that when the Torah says a Moabite cannot come to marry a Jewish girl, even if they converted, it's only referring to males and not to females. So he wanted a minion. Everybody, they had to be circular, they had to be decided. People had to know about these things. Unfortunately, for some reason, where they can't find any reason, I didn't find anyone saying why they didn't know it. Just that it was not circulated. I don't know why. But then this was a special halacha l'moche Sinai. It was comes from the oral tradition. Special halacha, and that's the way you understand that particular verse. And that's why he wanted a minion there at that time. Looking at verse 2, Vayikar Asar and Rashim, Boaz wanted 10 people. Misiknei ear from these. Misiknei not just the elders. Misiknei means the Talmidei Chacham, the scholars of the city, the Talmidei Chacham. Vayom Shvu Pabi, and they went ahead and they sat there. Vayom Alagoa, and now Boaz is addressing the Redeemer, the one that's a closer relative to Ruth. Kalkas, it says the following: Kalkas Sodeh Asher Lechim Elimelech. I want you to know the portion of the field that our relative Elimelech happened to own. Mochra Naomi. She had Naomi when she left. Remember, she left when it was a hunger in the land, and they left and went to Moab. What did they do with their property? They sold it to somebody. Okay, so now besides Ruth, the involvement of Ruth about Ruth getting married, there was another. They had the custom that they want the closest relative could redeem that field, could buy back that field. So that's what he's telling him now. He first tells him, there's a certain person, a certain field that Elimelech had. Mochronomi. Nomi had sold it. Hashem is a Moab. Now she has returned from the field of Moab. Okay. Verse 4. Va'ani amarti. And I said, Egle oznacholim. I'm going to reveal this to you. I want to speak to you about this. Knei neged hayoshvim neged knei ami. In front of all of us, I want you to purchase, to redeem the field. In front of us, in front of all the Talmidei Chachamim, all the front of the scholars. If you want to do it, fine. V'im lo yigal hagidoli. If you don't want to do it, just tell me. V'edo ki ein glus l'olakol l'chirech. Because I know that you. Besides me, you're the only one who's a closer relative. You're nochach rechen. I follow you. I'm second in line, but you have the first choice. And when you heard about that, the idea of redeeming, of purchasing back the particular property that Naomi owned, that she had sold before when they left to the Moab, I said, "Oh, fine. I'm willing to do a thing like that. Try to get it back." To redeem the field and give it to Naomi. He was willing to do that. But now the Boaz tells him the part that he's not going to like. Vayoma Boaz. And Boaz said to him, B'yom k'noschar sod miyad Naomi, the day you will buy back the field that was owned by Naomi, not only that, you are also acquiring Ruth the Moabite, who was the wife of Machlon, deceased, her former husband, or the son of Naomi. And by doing so, you are going ahead to perpetuate the memory of Naomi's son Machlon. So it's two things involved here: to buy back that field that Naomi had sold when she went to Moab, and also besides that, by doing so, you have the right to go ahead and acquire Ruth as your future wife. Okay, now that he will not go for. Vayoma Hagoel, and he's called the Gold Redeemer. And the Redeemer said, and he said the following: Lo uchal goli. No, I can't do that. I can't redeem it then. And look what he says. Pen ashkis es nacholosi. Because what will happen is, I'm afraid that I'll have, of course, trouble for my own family, because perhaps people will not recognize this, that it's acceptable for me to have Ruth and Moabite. He was, like I mentioned before, it wasn't publicized, even though the Beit Din at this time told him that was perfectly permitted according to the Torah. Since he didn't know about it, and now all of a sudden it just hit him. It's the new the thing of halacha, the Moshe Sinai special halacha. He says, "Oh no, I can't get involved in this now." He rejected it. I cannot do that. I might have problems with future generations, my children or my grandchildren. I might have problems with that if I will go ahead and agree to marry Ruth. Yeah. And by the way, he wasn't completely wrong. I did mention that later on in history, they did question David, whether he was really a legitimate Jew, was he really acceptable in the congregation of God. And I mentioned that when David went ahead and fought Goliath, Shaul was told by somebody, "Hey, wait a second, you're letting this guy David fight Goliath? He's not even one of ours. Maybe he's not even Jewish." And he told him the whole story. So what Shaul did, and what did he do? I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. What did Shaul do? He went ahead and he sent a messenger to the court in the time of the Jewish Sanhedrin to find out, is Ruth, was she acceptable or not? And they gave him the answer: yes, she was acceptable. She is a Jew, and therefore David is a Jewish man. But that, and I think I mentioned also Goliath. Interesting. David is descendant of Ruth. Goliath is descendant of Orpah, Ruth's sister, who went back to Moab. So it's interesting how they met on the battlefield. So he was concerned about this type of thing. He didn't want to affect his future generations. And he said to Boaz, "You good. You go ahead and you can redeem everything. I can't accept that. I will not be the redeemer." Okay, now the next verse talks about an ancient way of agreement when you want to purchase something. It's called a kinyan chalipa, which means the following. Don't see that we don't use it today, but they use, in this case, of using a shoe. Boaz did not have the exact cash on hand to go ahead and buy it at that particular time the property that was originally owned by Naomi, but he wanted to commit himself to do so. And by doing so, but what they did was, according to what in those days, he took a shoe, and it was the one who wanted to purchase it. He took off his shoe, and the one who was the seller would take the other part of the shoe, and it was like a gentleman's agreement that the property is now going to be handed over to the buyer, and later on, of course, he pays the money. So it was like a commitment, a public commitment that he was going to do so. So that's what it says over here in the next verse. Verse 7. Yeah. So this used to be done. Formerly, it was done in Israel. Alagulah, for redemption, with exchange of an item from one hand to the other hand. A kind called Lavor to establish the fact that this is what's acceptable. They all agreed upon it. One would drew off his shoe, and he gave it to his friend. And he took one person held one part of the shoe, and the other person the other part of the shoe. And that was like a gentleman's agreement that they have agreed that they, in this case, Tov has now transferred the right to redeem Naomi's property, and also the right that Boaz can marry Ruth. Okay. Bezot Hata'uda Israel. And this would be like a testimony that a ratification that the particular purchase was established, and of course he would have to, in this case, Boaz would have to pay the money to the owner of the particular field. Okay.
Right. What does it mean when they had to redeem the property? Elimelech had to sell it to somebody else, right? Of the same tribe, right?
But he had the right, but saying like this, Naomi obviously had some the a marriage certificate, and in the marriage certificate, she's entitled to a certain amount of money. They didn't have it at that point, but the idea was that she had sold some property to somebody else, and maybe it was a customer and they would sell it back. So this was the purpose of this whole deal over here. That in this case, Boaz would buy back the field or the property that she had, and Naomi will have a portion of that because obviously her husband must have guaranteed a certain amount of money. Like this very day, it's written that the woman can get the wedding, the marriage breaks or the divorce, whatever it may be, or her husband dies, a certain amount of money or a certain property goes to his wife. She didn't collect anything yet, so because she sold it by right beforehand. So now the whole idea was to get it back for her, that she could be paid for back for her ketubah. And also maybe Ruth, maybe Machlon, maybe a promise or something, even though it wasn't officially true at that time. Did not convert completely, or problem over there, or that she really did, or she didn't. Most probably her husband also promised her something. So the goal, the idea was the Redeemer had the right to buy back the original property and pay Naomi and Ruth for whatever happened to be. And also in this case, that Ruth can become Boaz's wife. Okay. Where are we now? So up to verse 9. And Boaz then said to the elders, to the Talmid Chacham, to everybody, hey, I'm telling you, you are witnesses. You're seeing this. You're hearing this transaction that's just taken place. He Conisius called Elimelech that I bought everything that originally was Elimelech. It's called Machlon, and also to his sons. Kinyo Machlon, Miyad from to help Naomi. Naomi will be able to collect from this purchase property, fields. Okay, and one other point, Begam es Ruth Moabia Eshes Machlon, and also Ruth the Moabite, who was formerly the wife of Machlon, who was the son of Naomi. Konisi Lili Yisha, but now I'm acquiring her as a wife. So this, the name of the deceased, the name of Machlon shall still remain. People will say, "Oh, the property that Ruth and Boaz has, used to be Machlon's property." So his name is still carried on to perpetuate his name. Below that his name shall not be cut off from among his brethren. From the gates of the city. Okay. You are witnesses today to this agreement that I now have with the former Goel, with the first Goel, Tov, we call them. Okay. By Yom Maru, all Ha'am, Shabashar, as a Canaan meeting, and everyone, all the people present in the court, and the judges and so on, say, yes, Adim, we are witnesses to this effect. This and now they give a blessing. May God go ahead and grant this woman who's going into your house, like Rachel and Leah. Now, why is Rachel mentioned first? Shouldn't you say Leah and Rachel? Because what it says, Shebonu Shteim spaces of both of them built the house of Israel. Why shouldn't Leah be said first? How many children did Leah have? How many children did Leah have with Yaakov? 6, right? Yeah. And how many children did Rachel have? 2. So wouldn't it be the right thing to say that this woman Ruth is coming in and building a house like Leah and Rachel? Why does it say Rachel and Leah? You should know that. Why is Rachel mentioned before Leah? Well, Leah indeed had more children than Rachel. She had 6, in fact 7 if you want to count Dina. And
Rachel was his favorite.
Yeah, because as you know, Yaakov really loved Leah more than he loved. Because I'm sorry, Yaakov really loved Rachel more than he liked Leah. So although Leah had more children, Rachel is mentioned first. Okay.
What do you say?
Okay. And as we know, it's saying that Ruth, this girl Ruth, certainly is a woman of valor, a great woman, a tzaddikas, a righteous woman, and she has a name, Kroshem bebeis lechem, and she's known in Beit Lechem, in that city. Obviously, words went around about her, and they saw how she acted and how her sincerity in committing herself to observe all the mitzvot. But people knew that much, that she was a very sincere woman, and she was definitely accepted into the house of Israel.
Rabbi Einsidler.
Yes.
What was the question I missed? Why you said they mentioned Rachel's name before Leah? What was the question? What was the question? Not the answer.
The question was that you're talking about Bnei Israel, all the tribes.
Yeah.
Who was the mother of the most tribes? It was Leah. Leah gave, through her came 6 tribes. Right. And through Rachel only came 2, Joseph and Benjamin, because of Binyamin. So shouldn't she be said first? Shouldn't we say she's her God to bless her like Leah and Rachel? But he first says Rachel and Leah. But one answer is, like we said, it seemed Yaakov loved Rachel more than he loved than Leah. So because he loved her more, therefore Rachel's name is mentioned first and then Leah.
And did you make any analogy to Ruth in there, or is just about the tribes?
No. The judges or whoever present was blessing Ruth, that should have the house like Rachel and Leah. She should be, from her she can send a lot of people and so a lot of children, right?
Could I ask one quick question about that? Is there any connection with Mashiach?
Yeah, Rachel's always first.
Is there any connection with Mashiach with that? You could say that.
But it's interesting. Leah from Yehuda, the Mashiach comes through Yehuda, and that was from Leah. It's interesting.
But Mashiach of David comes from Ruth.
Yeah, it comes from Ruth, but okay, but it's interesting. Rachel is mentioned first because Yaakov loved them more, but nevertheless, the Mashiach comes from Leah because it comes from the tribe of Yehuda. Very interesting, and also.
So they kind of split it in the end.
Yeah, remember the cave of Machpelah. Who was Yaakov buried with? Leah. Rachel was buried outside. They was not buried in the cave of Machpelah.
Right, on the way.
Yeah, like someone told me, what Leah wanted in her lifetime, she got after she died. Yeah, she was buried right by Yaakov. She wanted him to love her more, or to love her at least equal to Rachel, but it didn't happen until she died, and then they were buried together. And Rachel was left on the road to Beit Lechem. He was buried. Okay, that's unfortunate. That's the way it happened. And verse 12. He base Chaka base Peretz Asher Yoda Tomlu. So I think somebody mentioned that last time. He's going this whole thing with Elimelech and so on. They came out through the house of Peretz, but that Tamar, when Tamar had a child with Yehuda, Min Azera sheyitain Hashem lecha min hara zos she's a descendant of this, and who will come out from her are descendants who really came to be coming out from Ruth. But you can go all the way back to the tribe of Yehuda, but Tamar and Yehuda. So they're direct descendants. Okay. Vayikach Boaz is Ruth and Batilo Risha, and Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And he lived with her, had relations with her. Vayitin Hashem lo hiroyon batelebein, and God blessed her that she was pregnant, and she bore a son. Okay, I like one of these. So interesting. The matria hiroyon is pregnancy. Okay, and we know that they always say 9 months is the pregnancy. Is the pregnancy time. Okay, maybe a little more, a little less, but it's about 9 months. And how many, if you say if it's considered that 30 days is the average month, so it'll be approximately 270 days, give or take. Now, if you take the numerical value of Harion, it's also very interesting. How much is hay? What? 5, right. Reish?
5.
And what's Reish?
5.
That's hay is 5. What's the next letter?
200.
200. Okay.
200, right?
You're right. 200. Yud is?
Huh? Yud is 10.
Right. Vav is? 6. And Nun is?
221. And Nun is 30.
50.
30.
Nun is 50. Okay,
50.
so add it up. 5 plus 200 is 205.
221. 271.
271. So it's very close. If we assume every month is 30 days, we had 270. But this is 271. The numerical value of Harion equals to approximately the 9-month period that a woman before a woman conceived the baby. Okay, that's interesting, Gematria. Okay.
So which word is that again?
Which number?
Yom, the third word from the end on verse 13 says, "Hey Yom." But she was pregnant, she gave birth to a son. So the numerical value of Harion is 271. Okay, so very close to assuming that every month is 30 days. Okay, it's interesting. And she gave birth to a son. Okay. And then the ladies who were there said to Naomi, Baruch Hashem, blessed is God, thank God. That God did not left you without a redeemer. He did not leave you without a redeemer. You have a redeemer. Bikorei Shemo Israel, and his name shall be called in Israel. Yeah. Verse. That's interesting how they're addressing Naomi and not Ruth. This will become like you'll restore your soul. You'll feel good about it. And sustain you on your old age. Because, now by having the son, it perpetuates the name of her Machlon, her son who passed on. Like I mentioned before, the property will not be called Machlon's property. And now the child that Ruth gives birth is from the family of Naomi. She didn't
name him after Machlon.
What'd you say?
She didn't name him after Machlon. She named him Obed.
Obed, you're right. But nevertheless, Obed, Ruth is like, she's perpetuating the name of Machlon because the property was Machlon. And okay, she came from Ruth, but really, since she now became Naomi's daughter-in-law, so it's like it's a continuation. Because remember, Machlon was married to Ruth. That was her husband. So Machlon died. Now Naomi, Ruth is now marrying Boaz, who's a very close relative to Machlon. And now people and Elimelech and so on. So it was like in the mishpachos of the family. We didn't lose that part.
So my question is, why didn't she name him Machlon?
I don't know. I don't know.
She named him Obed and not Machlon. Was that not the tradition then?
I don't know. what's his name? Machlon. Maybe, I don't know.
Or Elimelech.
If I ever find an answer, I don't know. I don't know. It didn't happen like that. I don't know why would you do that. I don't have the answer for that. There might be a reason. I don't know.
Maybe they didn't do it then.
Maybe, I don't know. Because I don't have an answer. Maybe I'll find something. I'll let you know. But as it stands now, I don't have an answer for that. Okay. All I saw the Malbim did say, they mentioned it, that the birth of Obed was really, in a sense, it revived the soul of her son Machlon. That's what he said. So although it wasn't called Machlon, but really it's the soul of Machlon, because Machlon had originally married Ruth. Maybe it's more mystical, but anyway, this is what happened. And the people were telling her that where is it? He called it Sech Asher Ha'ivosech Yoladatu Asher Hitovlach Mishiva Bonim. The one who gave birth to Obed, as we know, she's so dear to you, and she's better to you than 7 sons. You know, she was really a wonderful daughter-in-law. Okay. Now, verse 16. Nomi as a yeled, but she said, and Nomi took the boy, the grandson, and she put him in her lap. And she was like a nurse, and she really helped raise the child. I'm sure Ruth did too. Interesting, it says that she raised him. Maybe she was so happy that she has now someone to remind her of Machlon, her son who passed on, and she helped raise this youngster. And even at 17, it really talks about the relationship of the boy to Naomi and not to Ruth, because she was so thrilled that the name to be carried on. Because look what it says over there. It says in verse 17, but Karena lo hashchenot shem limor, and the Yulad ben Lami and the neighborhood, all the women gave him name, saying a son is born to Naomi. They were very. It doesn't say the son was born to Ruth. Yes, he was born to Ruth. It wasn't born to Naomi, but it seems like it gave such joy to Naomi that knowing that this particular son is perpetuating the name of her son who passed on, Machlon. That was a joy she had. But the grandishmo Oved, and she called his name Oved, who Abi Yishai. They then had a son called Yishai, Abi David, and Yishai had a son called David. So that means, and let me see, Obed is a son, Yishai is the grandson. So that means David was the great grandson of Ruth. They say that Ruth lived a long life, that she even lived to see King Solomon. That's what they say. Right. Now notice, it doesn't mention Boaz from here to the end. It doesn't mention anything about. Wait a second. Isn't Obed Boaz's son also? But yes, once she gave birth.
Boaz is the hero.
Excuse me?
Boaz is the hero.
So why doesn't he mention his name? From now to the end, doesn't he mention his name? There's this very sad commentary. I don't like.
Because it's how she.
Mission was fulfilled.
It's how she cleaved to Hashem.
Yeah, but some say this is the sad part that the Midrash says that Boaz passed away. He did not. I don't even know if he even saw the son born, and that's why I notice Boaz's name is not mentioned. That's a sad thing, but it says as I state. That's what it says, that Boaz passed away. Unfortunately, so I don't know if he even saw the son that Ruth had. So that's why it doesn't mention his name at all over here. Okay.
That was his reward?
Excuse me? I know what you said.
Hashem looked what? He guided Ruth and Naomi for so many years. Couldn't take care of Boaz a little longer.
That's the part I don't like. I really, somehow I think it's so unfair, but who am I to say? Unfortunately, Boaz did die. I'm not sure if he saw the baby or he died before the baby was born, but he died shortly after. That's what the sages say. He didn't live after that. In other words, the hashgacha was, the divine supervision was that this child shall come from Boaz, which was comes from the Elimelech's family, and the descendants will be David and Shlomo and so on. Yeah, and Mashiach. If you want to look at it, the Mashiach really descends from Ruth. It's interesting. Okay.
Or from, why don't we say from Boaz?
And from Boaz. Well, Boaz too. Yeah, that was his son too. Yeah. Okay, that's it. And then the book of Ruth ends with the whole ancestry from Chetzron, Peretz, which is the son of Yehuda, on verse 18. The Ella told us Peretz, these are the generations of Peretz, told the Peretz. Peretz holides Chetzron, holy begot Chetzron. Chetzron holides Ram. Chetzron got Ram. Ram holides Aminadab. And Ram had Aminadab. Aminadab holides Nachshon. Who was Nachshon? Aminadab had Nachshon. He was a very famous fellow. What famous thing did Nachshon do?
He put his foot in the water.
Yeah, he jumped into the Sea of Reeds, and because he started the name,
the Red Sea.
Right, so that's correct. So Nachshon, you see the family she's coming from. She's coming from a very distinguished family. Nachshon, holy as Salmon. Nachshon got Salma. Salmon is Boaz. Salmon. We got Boaz. Boaz is Oved. Boaz, here it says Boaz. We got Oved. The Oved, holy is Yishai. And then Oved, we got Yishai. The Yishai, holy is David. And Yishai, he got David. So that comes out that Ruth or Boaz is the great grandparents of King David. So, and eventually, through this relationship that Boaz had with Ruth, the Mashiach will come. Now, another night, I gave you Gematria of Hera Yom. There's another Gematria that I like that's brought down. There are 85 sentences in the book of Ruth. 85 sentences. Now, if you look at it says, it says, in the end of verse 21, it says, Uvoaz, Holides Oved. And Boaz, we got Oved. If you take the numerical value of Uvoaz, let's see what it equals to. How much is Vav?
6.
That's it. How much is Bet?
2.
2. How much is Ayin?
70.
70. How much is Ayin?
7.
Okay, so 6 and 2 is 8. 8 and 5 is 13.
13.
Okay. No, did I do something wrong? Wait, 6. But Uvo 6 and 2 is 8 and 70. 78 and 5 is 78 and 5. 82, right? Something is wrong. 85.
What are you adding?
So I must have.
It's 91.
No. Uvoaz 785. 6 and 2 is 8. 78. Oh, yeah. That must have gone wrong. Yeah. 60. Yeah, that's right. Vav is 6, right?
Yeah.
That is 2. Ayin is 70. And Zion is 7. Okay, what is that equal to? Huh?
79.
85. And how many verses are in the Megillah? 85. Check it out. All the 4 chapters of the Megillah is a numerical value of Boaz. So you have 2 gematrias here, interesting gematrias. Boaz equals to 85. Now this verses in the book of Megillah, in the book of Megillah Ruth, and Hera Yom equals to what did I say? It was 270.
71.
271. Very close enough for the 9 months of pregnancy. Okay. So we've now Chazak. We have completed the book of Ruth. Okay. Any questions? The only thing is, huh? The only thing that I don't know.
When are you starting Koheles?
Oh God, that's Sukkot time. That's a very That's very philosophical. That's a hard, very hard book.
Yeah, I was just joking.
Very difficult book. Okay, man, one of these days we should do it. Okay, so have a good Shabbat. Remember this week again, we have a double parsha. Achrei Mos and Kedoshim.
Remote and.
And Kedoshim, and the double header again. And Kedoshim has a lot of mitzvos. Achrei Mos basically described the Yom Kippur service that was done in the Beit HaMikdash. Yeah. Okay, two interesting parshios. So look it through. So have a Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Feel good.
Shabbat shalom.
Okay,
Shabbat shalom.
take care. Night.